All right, so this is a mock-up of the third Thursday presentation I'm intending to do. This will be the content that I'm looking to deliver for this first one, and then we can kind of build from there. My goal is to really set the foundation for what it is we're trying to do with some of the fitness components that we have going on. So with the presentation itself, we look at it and we go, okay, why do we exercise? What is the point behind doing what we do? To the layperson, sometimes it's not easily seen. For us, I'm sure it's easily seen. But when you look at what we're trying to accomplish with exercise, we have to graph it out. When you look at this and you go, okay, my x-axis, my y-axis, and along the x-axis, we have this minimal functional capacity. And we have this ability to look at functional capacity in a number of different measures. But just in general terms, we're looking at what is the decline in functional capacity seen in time. And when we look at it and we graph it on the x-axis, we have roughly 20 years old to 100 years old. This can be curvilinear from a younger age up to 20 as we develop from infants up to 20 years old. But really what we're after is you have this gap, this kind of area, this gap between these two upright posts here, and one of which is the difference between an active lifestyle and an inactive lifestyle. And what we're looking at doing is at any point plotting this. As soon as a person starts moving and they have any kind of activity in their lives, you basically change the slope of that line and you push it further out on the x-axis. So our goal is really, quite honestly, to allow people to live longer. Now, understandably, if there are certain illnesses, issues, or genetic concerns at play here, it will definitely change this line when you compare person A to person B. But if we're looking at apples to apples, person A to person A, and we introduce in an active lifestyle into the process, we know that this space between becomes pretty darn important, right? Because it is the gap between living to one age to another age further out. And there are a ton of different diseases that all have one common type of medicine, that being exercise. Not a pill, not an inhaler, nothing like that. And these diseases all come from lack of movement, hypokinetic. And this is just a short list on the right here in terms of cardiac conditions, respiratory conditions, hyperlipidemia, hypertriglyceridemia, free-floating fats in the blood, triglycerides in the blood, type 2 diabetes, and then different orthopedic conditions also benefit from just movement. And then, of course, what we're always after in here is impaired cognitive function. So as soon as we introduce in some type of activity, there's a benefit gap that happens here. And that benefit gap allows people to live longer, right? More years on that x-axis. But also, even at a particular point in time, there's a gap in between how well they are living. And we can't get over this curve, this sloping line. I mean, we all owe it that somewhere down the road that we're going to be done on this planet. But what we're trying to do, again, is have a longer, better life. Now, the components of wellness, if you go ahead and Google up components of wellness, you'll find psychological, physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and financial. Those are all part of it. What we focus on in here a lot is the physical component. And that physical component takes into account the fact that we're able to get our hands on these people and work with them. Now, you can definitely make the argument that there's a strong relationship between the physical well-being of a person and then the psychological, emotional, and social well-being. You can probably sit there and talk about the spiritual and financial, better decision-making, more in touch with one's deity and a better connection in terms of spirituality. But I will defer on those and definitely look at the psychological, emotional, and social component because that is what we espouse here when we work with people. We're really trying to get them involved and be more social, and it does increase a psychological and emotional component as well to the benefit of our residents or members. Now, components of physical wellness, if we just take that one bullet point up here and we look at just the physical wellness components, and we break this out over here, when you look these up, you'll find cardiovascular endurance, muscular strength, muscle endurance, flexibility, and body composition. In our environment, I'm not super concerned about body composition, though obesity does have its place, right? We know there's certain illnesses associated with obesity, everything from diabetes, to sleep apnea, all the way across the board. And so with that, yes, I do understand and see that, but these components are all part of physical wellness. I tend to look at it in terms of replacing body composition with this group and having more of a physical wellness in the center. And then body composition is replaced with balance and coordination, because that's a huge component of what we talk about in here. So of course we have the cardiovascular component and cardiovascular endurance, muscle strength, muscle endurance. And with these, cardiovascular endurance is the ability for the cardiovascular system to be able to work effectively. The heart works with the lungs to be able to offload all the byproducts of exercise and working out, but also be able to suck in oxygen and distribute it to the body. Okay, that's part of what I'll go over. Muscle strength is the ability to move something, lift something, do work, if you want to think of it that way. And then muscle endurance is the ability to do work over and over and over. What has to be part of that equation is flexibility, and flexibility allows for several different things. So flexibility allows for greater ability for muscle strength, right, because you have a greater range of motion, but also flexibility allows people to move more fluidly and have a more integrated, if you will, movement pattern and ability to move. And the central nervous system gets involved when you start talking about balance and coordination. But flexibility allows for a range of motion to have better balance and coordination and greater muscle strength and greater muscle endurance. So this is a key component. There's no doubt about it. That's why we spend a lot of time working on flexibility. But in our environment, for me, the big fifth on this wheel here is going to be balance and coordination as a component add, a value add to physical wellness. And I'm not going to get too far into this when I talk about this, but what we're really doing is applying a stressor to our bodies. And our bodies are really, really good at adapting to a stressor. And this is defined by a process called general adaptation syndrome. Humanistic psychologist Hans Selye, he did experiments where he applied a shock to a single-celled organism, and this is a real simplified version of this. And he found if there was too much or too little stimulus, that single-celled organism, if it had too little stimulus, would adapt, but then only so much. And then if you had too much stimulus, it would adapt and it would continue to try to adapt, and it just couldn't keep up with the stimulus applied, and it would become exhausted and then eventually just die. But if you have just the right amount of stimulus at the right intervals, etc., you'll have adaptations to that stimulus. All right, so if we apply this now to what we're talking about with what we do, we're applying a stressor to the human organism. So we're trying to apply the right amount of stress in the right doses, in the right quantities, in the right dosing packages, in the right frequency, if I can say it that way. And we have adaptations to training programs. And we're already seeing that with our people. We're seeing people who are commenting that they feel better, they're moving better, they're more fluid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is fantastic. So really what we're doing is we're juxtapositioning the single-celled organism with the human organism. And I think that's something that'll play out and our people will understand. With this whole process, you have to look at it and go, okay, our bodies are at homeostasis, we're at rest. We add a stimulus, that's a stressor, and our bodies are really good at adapting to stressors, but they'll only adapt to stressors so far, right? Our bodies are really actually quite lazy. So you have to be good at changing that stressor. That's why you'll see sometimes different movement patterns, but we'll do different repetition ranges, or we'll do different exercises done in different sequences. That's so your body reacts and adapts to this constantly changing stressor that's being placed on the human organism, your body. Now, what happens is your body adapts to it, and you're better able to perform a skill next time. And really what we're after is we're after the ability to apply the stimulus in the appropriate amount to get a training response, and then they're better able to perform the skill the next time. Now, from an athletic standpoint, we apply a skill, we apply the stressor, we increase the amount of effort, if you will, and a degree of difficulty through any number of measures. So when they get onto the field of play, that skill translates. I often talk about that with my athletes, translate the skill, translate the skill. Very analogous to what we do in here. We're applying a stimulus to the human organism, and it could be somebody who is standing on a towel and we're doing step overs, and we're going from side by side to tandem, maybe foot position. And as a result, the body's going to react to that as a stressor. The central nervous system will fire appropriately. There'll be a more coordinated effort in the firing. The body will react. And then you'll have a more coordinated effort in the firing of the muscles to have the person be able to step, stop, and not fall down. So really, if you think of it, what we're doing is we're giving our people a number of skills, integrating them into doses of workouts So now when they get out into the real world and they step on a crack in the sidewalk, they're not going to twist their ankle. They'll be able to step, recover, and continue on, not step, twist, and fall. But it has to be appropriate for the person. So some of the things that we do with the people in the athletic population, we just never could do here, and vice versa. And the way I always describe this bell curve of wellness is this. You have this general population in the middle, and most of the people who are walking around, apparently healthy, et cetera, might have a couple contraindications to exercise. Some are apparently healthy, weekend warrior. And then when you get over here, these are the people who are playing soccer for the World Cup. These are the people who are playing football on Sunday afternoons. There's 5 or 6 standard deviations over there, 1/10 of, maybe even 1,000th of 1% of the population. Over on this side, you have people who maybe had a slip and fall, a broken hip, some type of, maybe they have some type of condition that's cardiac in nature. And so as a result, what we're trying to do is keep them from going down this slope down into where they end up in a facility that is end stage. And so we work very hard, we all know this, where we're trying to work with individuals who are in here and keep them from going down the slope. So very different from the athletic side to the prehab rehab side. We're really just trying to slow the regression. And basically, if we can get these people to slow and stop and maybe even move them a little bit to the right, we're happy, right? And that gets back to this gap here between the yellow and the green, very much like the yellow and the green you see here. So what we do in terms of exercise, and given many of these people were out of working out or out of any kind of fitness for several months, from just being COVID related. And so they were very deconditioned. So the goal here is we have to put in this foundation first. We have to work on how do we build this foundation. It starts from introducing in these skills that we've done, balance, coordination, flexibility, strength, and then doing some light conditioning as well. And we're adding in some cardiovascular endurance by having them walk as well. We have muscular strength, right, that we're working out with dumbbells and medicine balls. We're doing exercise that's repetitive in nature over a full half an hour, which becomes a little bit more muscular endurance oriented. And then also we work on the flexibility and balance component. And that really helps us to have an increased level of fitness and function. And then from there, we can really build on some cool stuff going forward. But it's the process of microdosing exercise from these disciplines. This is how I'm viewing this, to be able to benefit our members here. And so when I present this to them, this is exactly how I'm going to present what we do. And things that they can do going forward. You can go ahead and continue to attend group sessions. That's fantastic. Utilize the fitness center. Come on down. We're going to have an incentive program for people to utilize the fitness center and also earn some points for workouts. Schedule some one-on-one time with me. I'll be happy to come to a room and work with you. Come on down to the fitness center. I'll be happy to work with you. And then we're going to be implementing and follow the exercise of the week, which will be on your information page that you get every day. And then also just try to do some activity in your room, whether it's something as simple as while you're watching TV and the commercial comes on, try to move around a little bit. And when the commercial is done, you sit back down and watch TV. Try to find ways to introduce in just some movement into your days. And that is it. Let me know what you guys think.